Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 196 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my friend Byron. How are you today, Byron?
Doing very good, Gary. Always good to be back together again on the podcast. Really excited for this episode. Nathan Orchard is our interview this week, and really enjoyed the conversation I had with him.
Yep, so definitely you don't want to miss that, and also protect your legs. Nathan's coming onto our podcast to heel hook and ankle lock all of us.
Yep, and we do get a bit into that aspect as far as he's developed systems, and he could decide which system to really activate at any given time, and it's really an interesting way to train, and it makes him a very difficult person to try to prepare for as somebody who's facing him. What he's going to do this time. He's going to be trying to work from his guard and choke me or armbar me, or is he going to be working from our legs? He's a very interesting person to watch grapple, very fun person to interview too.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I've never trained with him in person, but I did sign up for the Leg Lock Academy. So I have, learned a lot from Nathan without meeting him in person through the Leg Lock Academy. So that's another thing you can definitely check out, and if you want to get some work on leg locks.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I'll be putting notes. I'll be putting that in the show notes, I suppose. I need to do that now. You're the man.
Thank you. Can you say that again, Byron?
Gary, you're the man, and is that why you've been leg locking me very easily the past few months?
It does have a lot to do with that. It really does. So thank you, Nathan.
Well, Gary, I'd like to tell everybody about our newest audiobook. We've had our first year in BJJ audiobook out for a couple of years now, and it's been great. And if you're in your first year of grappling, we definitely urge you to check that out. But we now have an audiobook called 6 Games for BJJ, and it is designed to help you really discover the best parts of your own game by kind of altering the way you roll and in putting some limits around you, and really takes the mats and really makes it into like a science experimenting laboratory where you're going to be testing out certain things and looking to see what happens and going back and developing your own game through these other games. So these are kind of games to play while you're rolling. And there's 6 of them in this audiobook. And one of them that I think is a really good one is the backwards grappler. And just to quickly highlight this is you're going to do, if you always pass a certain way, you're going to pass the other way. If you always heel hook the same heel, you're going to try heel hook the other heel. And the beauty of this method, and I go into quite a bit more detail than I am now, obviously, but you know how the techniques work. You know how they should feel, but everything's a little bit off. So obviously, you won't be able to execute these techniques at the same level you could on your correct side. But when you use your wrong side, your brain still knows, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this. But they may find a different way out. They may present a counter that you really don't run into a lot. And you might see some other options or something to do in the sequence of attacks after this. And you may even strengthen up your good side by kind of playing around with your bad side a little bit and working that. You could pick up a really good attack on your kind of your dumb side, as you say, or maybe you call it your good side and you have a great side. And that really could double the things that you're doing. I'm trying to develop a good arm and guillotine using my left hand, and I'm really struggling with that. But I'm also finding things, certain sweeps that I'm able to pull off with my legs that when I guillotine my good side, it's harder for me to do that. So I found new things that I could do off my arm and guillotine when I'm trying to do it off my bad side. And yeah, I'm getting a few of them. They are definitely a little bit more difficult to finish, but I know how to do the technique. I just have to get my body to act that way. But the way people are countering it is just interesting for me to try to deal with those struggles. And sure, if my goal was to get as many taps as I could during a certain roll, I'd be using my good side only. But it's important to experiment a little bit and to try to grow while you're actually training. So check out the audiobook. It's a little over an hour long. It's $5.99, and there'll be a link to it in the show notes, and all the money goes and helps support the podcast. And Gary, that's why my guillotines have kind of sucked lately.
And I can tell you, I've been working the wrong side here lately, thanks to your book there, or your audiobook. But, today I probably passed 10 times on my bad side, all on purpose. And, I do feel like here in the last week, my passing to my weak side has gotten stronger. So it's definitely helping me out. So I appreciate the tips there, Byron.
Yeah.
Yeah, but another part about this 6 games for BJJ, when Byron was putting it together, he was asking me for some advice on, games if I had any. And, last week we talked about, duck, duck, snap the goose. Byron didn't do that one. And I remember when I was a kid, we used to play heads up, 7-up in school. And I thought that would be a good one for this. Heads up, you get choked. So, I tried to play that game with Byron, but he wasn't having any of it. So, I think it was probably pretty smart of Byron not to put any of my games in this audiobook.
Yeah, the game of keeping your head up, keep your chin up, kid. That advice doesn't really translate over to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, and like I told Byron too, when I was a kid, we played kickball. So I, was saying, hey, maybe we should play kick the balls. But Byron wasn't into that one either. So, I tried to give stuff into this, but I totally understand Byron for not taking any of my advice.
Yeah, that one will get you disqualified a little quicker than the other ones.
Yep. Speaking of getting disqualified, you don't want to get disqualified and miss an episode every week of BJJ Brick podcast. So check out our link that we have on our show notes and sign up for our email list. Each and every week, we'll send you a link to the show notes so you will not miss an episode. So definitely put your name in there and your email address, and we'll get it out to you each and every week.
Yep. Excited to bring the interview, but real quick, I want to give the quote of the week. It is by Bobby Robinson. Practice makes permanent. And this is kind of a play on words, practice makes perfect, or as Gary likes to say, perfect practice makes perfect. But this could be, you could kind of look at your practice with a bit of a skeptical eye. Practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing the wrong things, if you're doing 100 arm bars, in 2 minutes, and you rip them out real fast and they're all sloppy and not tight, not well put together, you're making this a permanent way that you armbar things. So your brain can't really distinguish when it's time to just practice an armbar and when you want it to actually work for sure. Like the body mechanics are going to be the way you're practicing them. So I think this is important when you're practicing. Try to make it as perfect as you can, because that will make your technique that much cleaner and that much easier to execute.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, practice makes permanent. You do something wrong, it's going to be permanent. You do something right, that's definitely going to work to your advantage. It makes me think back to when we used to do the armbar drill from the guard, where you'd go from side to side. And, I first learned it, and, I'd do good technique. I'd bring the arm across. I would, post on the leg. I would break down the posture, and I would do a nice slow rep to get it done. And then pretty soon, everybody started doing I just remember it being called the windshield washer drill, where you just keep going back and forth really sloppily. And, so I was like, okay, let's get as many reps in when I first started. And I started, doing them sloppily. And my arm bars got worse. And, finally I said, I don't care how many reps I get in. I'm just going to go back to doing a nice slow rep with good technique and, getting everything proper. And I'll end up having a better arm bar from the guard. And that's kind of what that quote from Bobby Robson makes me think about.
Yeah, it's an interesting quote, and really just think about it. If you're practicing something and you know that you're cutting corners and you're getting sloppy, it's still making it permanent into your grappling systems, and you might want to clean those up a little bit if you want to have a more efficient method of grappling.
Yep. Well, just before we went on air, Byron and I were talking about this, the quote, and Byron put up a good point. He's like, you shampoo, most of us here shampoo probably once every 6 days, 7 days when we take a shower. I mean, we're doing it every week for our whole life. And are we perfect at shampooing? I don't think so. So just because you're doing something doesn't make you perfect at it, but it kind of is permanent. It's something we're doing each and every time. You're probably doing the same thing, every time, and it may not be right. I can't say I've read a lot of books on how to shampoo correctly.
You probably have shampooed your hair thousands and thousands of times, but does that mean that you're going to become world class at it? Absolutely not. I mean, you're basically the same level of proficiency that you were pretty early on. Basically, when you got to the point where you stopped getting shampoo in your eyes and it burned, once you get to that point, you kind of probably level off because you weren't getting that negative feedback about what you're doing wrong. But so everybody kind of gets to the same point where they shampoo their hair, they don't get they don't get it in their eyes, and they don't get any better. And it's not a big deal. It's just an example. Nobody really cares to be world class at shampooing their hair, but it's
tell that to Vidal Sassoon, Byron.
I knew you'd have something to say on that one, but it's not a big deal. But if you wanted to get better, what would you do to become better at shampoo? You would look for feedback. You would look for usage of the water. You would look for all these different things, and that's what we're trying to do in jiu-jitsu. You're not wanting to just become just to grapple and level off on your ability. You're wanting to get better, so you need feedback, and you get that from your teammates and training partners. You want to push yourself into new areas of development and new skills on the mat. So we're doing that. Imagine if the whole time I tell you, hey, Gary, your shampoo would be way better if you move your hands the other direction and instead, or maybe if you had some little thicker hair, it'd be better. But I can't talk too much on that one, Gary.
Yep, there he goes again, making fun of my hair. So thanks, Byron.
Hey, at least you have hair. I'm basically shaving it all off by now. Getting closer anyway, Gary.
Getting closer, well, but it does help you get out of guillotine. So there is an advantage. Well,
this is the BJJ Brick podcast where we talk about jiu-jitsu and things like that. Not so much hair. This isn't the hair brick podcast. So, Gary, what do you think we should get on with the interview with Nathan Orchard? He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
I took my unorthodox fighting style to the world of hockey. With my fighting style, I was the second person in history to be kicked off the team for trying to stab somebody with a skate. If I don't like you, you will always find a hair in your mouth when rolling with me.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Nathan Orchard to the BJJ Brick podcast. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to talking to you all week long, and here we are.
Yeah, same here.
Just to kind of get everybody on the same page, could you just give us a little introduction about who you are, where you're training, and what you're up to?
Well, I'm a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Eddie Bravo. I run a school. I run 10th Planet Portland, out here in Portland, Oregon. I've been doing martial arts. The beginning of my journey was around 17 years ago. I started wrestling and went through wrestling and MMA and jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is now my main passion that I'm focusing on. But I'm still a martial artist and spend just my days training and learning and studying and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Was that the order? It was wrestling first and then MMA and then jiu-jitsu?
Yes, exactly. I wrestled starting in 7th grade when I was like 12, I think, and then I wrestled for 4 years. I had some injuries, so I didn't get to have full seasons or whatnot. But then when I was 16, actually, so I was still in high school, of course, I had my first MMA fight. That was in 2004. And so that's kind of when jiu-jitsu really kind of popped out to me. Well, I got armbarred in the first, 2.5 minutes or so, and I didn't even know what was going on at the time. I thought I could wait it out. I was like, he's got me in this weird hold. I'll be fine. All of a sudden my arm pops, And so I was like, okay, all right, this is real. What is this? And so I kind of went from there, started studying and back then, there wasn't really YouTube videos in 2004. There wasn't really all this crazy information out there. So finding stuff is much more difficult back then. And, but it's all the process, so it's good.
Yeah. So what made you want to do the MMA, having basically that wrestler background? You probably didn't do a whole lot of striking before that either. You just got that.
No striking at all. No, you know what? Probably the movie Fight Club, and I had a good friend, Aaron Lindsay. We would just, again, it was kind of like Fight Club style. We would just fight in the front lawn, and so for some reason there was like this gritty element of combat, but like not in an angry way that I really loved, not like a street fight where you're angry at the person, just like two friends, like, yo, let's see what happens when we fight, and that kind of like got me into it. And again, I thought I was a tough guy, and the one thing that martial arts has taught me over the years is that I'm not a tough guy, and that we are all very capable of getting our asses kicked, or kicking ass. So, it just kind of gives you some perspective, and I was drawn to that, I think.
You say you're not a tough guy. I think the mental toughness is what got you from losing that MMA match to saying, I want to learn more and become better, versus just, well, that kind of sucked. Okay, I got arm bars.
I don't know if it's mental toughness. I think someone said it. I heard this the other day. Knowledge over comfort. It's not comfortable to learn and grow. Actually, it's like literally when you're growing up as a kid, you have growing pains. Growing hurts, but it's worth it. And so sometimes you just got to go through some tough times and ordeals. That's what growth is. So. I don't know. I think I just like to grow and learn. I don't even know if it's because I'm tough. I mean, sure, you have to be a little tough to do it, but it's like I'm just addicted to learning. It just feels good to grow every day,
Is there a difference between learning something and like discovering something for yourself?
I don't know. I think that they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The more you discover of yourself, the more you're able to learn. The more you learn, the more you're able to discover of yourself. And so it's all just this one big thing that I guess we could sum it up by just calling it growth. That's, I guess, how I look at it.
Yeah, and you've got to put yourself in those positions, I guess, on the mat or in life where you're not super comfortable, and you're not where you were exactly yesterday. You're a little pushed. You're stressing yourself a little bit to have that reaction out of your learning process, and that's how you're growing.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
So your MMA fight, 2014, and you started jiu-jitsu pretty much right after that.
2004. Yeah. And then
sorry.
And let's see. My last MMA fight was in 2011, and so quite a while ago now. And I was on like an 8-fight winning streak. I was doing really well. I was submitting a bunch of people. Which was before I even like really delved into jiu-jitsu like deeply. I was a wrestler, and so I figured out how to do an arm bar and how to do a triangle choke and a rear naked choke. That was easy. But then I lost 3 fights, 3 decisions in a row. And like to wrestlers, like I would be on the bottom and I'm throwing up submissions and stuff like that. But, the MMA judges, especially back then, they see a guy on bottom, they think he's losing, even though he's nearly tapping his left and right and not taking any damage. So I got kind of frustrated with the MMA mindset, and I wanted to just like get my jiu-jitsu so good no wrestler could stop me in the cage. And then I kind of just forgot about MMA for a minute, and really got so deep and swallowed up in the jiu-jitsu world. I haven't gone back to MMA yet, which I may, but not for a career per se. It would be more just to test myself and, try and heel hook somebody or something.
Nathan, if you could put yourself back when you started jiu-jitsu, that wrestler in you, did you put away your wrestling and you said you learning triangles and arm bars like stuff, or did you want to like bring wrestling to jiu-jitsu and combine the two of them to where it was mostly top game?
I love the fusion of wrestling. And see, I was a strange wrestler. I'm a strange jiu-jitsu guy. I don't play a very conventional game, being 10th Planet, and then my own just weird flair. But I was a strange wrestler too. I just did weird, goofy things, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But it just taught me, again, Bruce Lee kind of talked about, self-expression even more than like technique, And so to just learn how to express yourself and just do what works for you, That's one thing that I feel like I've actually always been fairly good at. It's just being me. And one of the, I think, reasons for that is that, I haven't really had too much of a jiu-jitsu coach over the years. I've trained with Eddie Bravo, of course, quite a few times, but for the first, again, I had 21 MMA fights before I even heard of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. So, I've always been learning by just studying. And so no one ever was telling me no. No one was ever saying, no, don't do it that way. That doesn't work, or that's stupid. So I was just able to do what I wanted or what worked for me, and it turned into my own just weird little style, So, yeah, it's all just how it goes, I guess, in the way that I've come up.
Could you describe some of the you say weird style? Could you describe that? Some of the things that make your style weird or strange that is also very successful, like some of the elements that, like, I can understand. I do something kind of weird and I get choked out. I do something kind of strange and I get caught in a heel hook. But you're able to do this and have success with it. So what are some of the things you're doing that bring you success?
Well, for example, like, and it's really nothing new necessarily. It's just. It's not very common. Like, for example, in my I think it was my last match at Submission Underground. Okay. I did this double under escape that I do from lots of places. It's like a little game I have. And even the guy, my opponent after the match, he commented on how strange it was what I was doing. He's like, I never really seen that before. Well, this is a very, very experienced dude. So for him to be like, yo, I didn't know what Orchard was doing. He was doing some weird, goofy shit. Like, that's kind of an example. It's just things that people always kind of scratch their head to, and which I like even more because a few years back, I was starting to develop this whole little double under game that I play. And I had a friend, he told me this recently. He's like, man, Orchard, 3 years ago when I saw you do that, I thought you were stupid. He's like, why were you doing that escape? I thought it was ridiculous. But then 3 years later, I showed him like my whole little system there. And he's like, man, I'm so glad that I never like discouraged you because this is incredible, And so, yeah, I don't know. You just that's just a small example of maybe something that I do different. And I also like have the way I think of jiu-jitsu. I just like systemize things. I don't know why, but like I have just like, I don't want to say hundreds, but many, many systems, these closed loop and open loop systems that, I mean, they're intertwined or they go just round and round and round. And I don't know. I feel I don't see a lot of people doing the things that I do. And people tell me that as well. They're like, wow, this is different. And we're all different, of course. You know what I mean? We all have a different style. But some people's is more common, straight up. That's just the way it is. So I just play like a bastardized game of everything. I study all martial arts, and I add into my jiu-jitsu whatever I can, which you'd be amazed at how much you can add from, Aikido or Hapkido or Aikido is what I'm trying to say. Even, I'm studying the samurai sword, and that's teaching me things that I never could have known if I hadn't studied it. And I'm applying it to my jiu-jitsu, and it's just incredible. It's really fun.
Is developing like a system like this, and maybe for somebody who's newer, they're not going to have, approaching 100 systems, but even like 2 or 3 systems has been hugely valuable for me. Like, okay, I'm here, and he's really going to do one or two things, and I have an answer for that problem that he's going to present to me, and then and you kind of keep him, like you said, in the loop. You know where he's going to go, and you don't let him pass you in what's going on. Is that part of your training method as far as I'm working this system today and I want to make this better, or you just happen while you roll?
No, I definitely will like delve in and study and like problem solve little situations, and then I test it in my rolls. But my style, it's funny. My students are always saying, "Oh, what's Orchard on now?" Because every 6 months I seem to be obsessed with something different, or a year. For a long time I was just obsessed with leg locks. Now I just love choking people. There's been times where guard is just my game. Right now, again, I'm also obsessed with wrestling. I really am. Again, tapping into my wrestling roots and adding that to my style of jiu-jitsu. So I can't even remember what the question was. I kind of just went off again there.
No, it's good. So what determines what's next, and what determines when you change something? You might be working on heelhooks for a while, and then suddenly you're fascinated by chokes. Is there something that you could notice as a pattern to what brings you to the next thing, or away from something?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I think a lot of it, because I'm constantly competing, and so it's I'll look at the style of the guy I'm matched up with, and say, hey, okay, what is the game that I think best counters his style? And then I'll kind of jump into that. Or sometimes I just get really excited about a position and I want to just play it nonstop until I understand every in and out. So, I mean, there's kind of a lot of ways, but I tend, once I have an opponent in mind, I start thinking about how I think they'll move and what will help me there. I went in with a really specific game plan against Imanari. And I pulled it off, honestly, perfectly from how I had been training it. So, but then I play a totally different game against, whatever opponent in a different rule set too, So the rule set dictates a lot,
Yeah.
That will change things. Is it being judged? Is it no time limit? Is it EBI rules? So
are
all
you
those factors?
So if you're not training for an actual specific person, you're just kind of working on different systems. And then when somebody's presented, I have a match with somebody. Like you do have a match coming up on the 29th, Chokes by the Ocean. And so are you kind of figuring out which system that you've already made is going to fit this opponent the best? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not to say I'll get tunnel vision and only use one system, but there is definitely an idea of how I think this guy plays and thinks, and I think that I have a complementing style. So I'm looking. I mean, it's Ethan Krelliston is my opponent, who just won 80cc trials in San Diego, and so as far as that goes, he's I consider him top 16 in the world because he just qualified for 80cc, which is a 16-man tournament. So he's the cream of the crop. And I'm really excited to test out, my skills against his. I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and Nathan, you could understand as somebody who's competing against you that if you're changing your system to tailor match my problems, it's going to be I can't predict what you're going to bring to me every time because
People think, they'll say, he just does rolling Kimuras. And then other people say, he does heel hooks. And then some guys are like, he's a guard guy. It's like, no, you don't understand. I do it all. There's no submission that I don't love and that I don't use. And there's honestly nowhere in jiu-jitsu that I'm uncomfortable. I mean, yeah, sure, you get into some deep, bad spots and no one likes that, but whatever, I still understand it. And, I truly feel like I'm a very, very well-rounded. I can play top game, or I can play your classical 10th planet game, or I'll play my own, or I'll just take your back and crush your face, so.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper into this. When you're facing an opponent and you've got somebody and you've faced some of the best in the world and beaten many of them, are you trying to find a weak spot, or are you trying to avoid certain part of their game so it ends up taking you to this area over here? How do you evaluate your competitors?
Yeah, I would say knowing their style, of course, if they have a weak spot, like Imanari, all right, chances are he wanted the leg lock. Right?
Yeah.
And so why would I play the leg lock battle against a guy like that? So my whole thing was take his back and choke him. Going into that match, I literally said to myself, I'm either going to choke him or I'm going to get him in my guard and pull an arm bar off, my way. But I just saw that in him. Back in the day, I had a match against Barry Yoshida, who I respect a lot.
Yeah.
Again, you got Eddie Bravo named a submission after me, the Dead Orchard. It's just a strange variation of an arm bar. But, us 10th Planet guys, we're always naming things. But 2 weeks before I had my match against Barrett, which I didn't even know for sure if I would meet him because we would have to meet in the semifinals, which is exactly what happened. But I said to all my friends, you could ask them, I was like, I'm a Dead Orchard Barry Yoshida. I'm just going to. I see it. I see that move would work against him. I just felt it. I saw it in his style, and I don't know. I just maybe have intuition in that way, but I feel like I actually call my submissions, even just to myself, quite often. I just feel what they do compared to what I can do. So it's just like, to me, having a deep understanding of what style counters the other. Like, they're back in the old school, kung fu days, snake style beat crane style, and crane style beat tiger, and but tiger smashed snake. It's just like the style, certain styles make matches. That's what I'm trying to say, is that depending on, I have super tough matches against some blue belts in my gym, and then some brown belts I can just crush. But then some brown belts are just insane, and some blue belts are like, man, how are you blue belt? What's going on? So it's styles make matches.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to kind of quantify that.
Yeah. In a way to quantify that, because you are changing your style pretty much at any time. Like, I'm going to play this style or this system right now, and it's just like a drop of a hat. You could just attack it a totally different way. How
100%.
When you're looking at your competitor and you're trying to determine which system you're going to use, or which series of systems, if you make the wrong decision, could you beat some of these people with more than one? Is it like this system or nothing? Or
no, it's never like that. It's just that there's a guess of what, the thing is, if one system isn't going to do it, the other one will.
Okay.
If I'm going for Kimuras and it's just like, okay, the Kimura game isn't working, I misread it or whatnot, but then you can also use your Kimuras to set up your leg locks, and you can use all those things to take the back. So also understanding how these systems, which are separate, how they intermingle, how they connect to each other, that's, I guess, what makes my style my style. Is I see how my games all connect, and again, everyone is just, your jiu-jitsu is like your fingerprint. No one's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And
I think you had that pretty early on. You said you really weren't around like a ton of like, this is my coach and he's watching me every day and telling me how to. So you kind of developed that earlier on. Whereas a lot of people who are fairly new to jiu-jitsu, they're doing these core moves that their instructor is really teaching them. And
there's power in that, and there's some of that I just don't have. Like, just straight up, my straight up fundamental game, if you want to call it that, is not my strength. It's not what I do, and it also doesn't fit my style as far as submission only. In points matches, it doesn't work out so well. In submission only, it works out great. So that is, again, a factor,
You mentioned that you're experimenting with other martial arts and you're finding some stuff. Do you have any examples of stuff you're looking at too, and which you've brought back to the submission game?
Well, again, I'm studying the samurai sword. I'm studying a style called Shinkendo, and one thing that it's teaching me is just footwork, just some of the cleanest footwork that I've ever learned. And the samurai sword is actually very closely related to Aikido. And so, I mess around with some wrist locks and wrist throws. I used to not believe in that stuff until someone tossed me with my wrist, just twisted my hand a certain way. And I flipped, and I was like, they literally threw me. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to open my mind and stop saying that that's some fake stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's a slippery slope, because there are some crazy martial arts and fake martial artists out there and stuff like that. But I really want to believe that there's a little bit of truth in everything. And there's definitely some lies and things too. But I'm trying to pull out even just the smallest bit of good information, even if the rest of it's bad. And I'll just get rid of that. You know what I mean? But again, going back, samurai sword, the footwork and attention to detail, that's another thing. Understanding how center lines work is super important in martial arts, and not just jiu-jitsu. That's just the paradigm that I see, but striking as well, of course. Really, it's all that martial arts are martial arts. They're all built on the same kind of core principles. And the more you learn that all the core principles are the same throughout all the martial arts, the more you can believe it, sort of, and then the more power you can give it, if that makes sense. It all connects to me.
Yeah.
The way I see things.
Nathan, do you do any or some training with the gi?
I have rolled in the gi a few times. Most of the gi training I had done back in the day, way back in the day, was because I was going to do a judo tournament. And I was a wrestler just doing a judo tournament. So I didn't even really, I was like, whatever. Yeah, sure. We grab. I don't really like grabbing the clothing. It's just in you don't do it in wrestling, and then you don't do it in MMA. And then when I found 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, I didn't even really know that the gi was part of Jiu-Jitsu. Like, that's how ignorant I was to it all. And so it never has really been part of my game. But, you know, again, I've rolled in the gi, and like I've even tapped people out with gi chokes, you know, but it's just not something that like I'm super into right now.
Yeah.
But I think at some point, just for the sake of being a martial artist, I'll delve into the gi some more, you know.
Yeah. And you'll be absolutely great at with the gi on it. It really, I don't think it'll affect you much as far as in a negative way. But I mean, I
got to learn the tricks of breaking grips and what the grips are. You know, I don't even know any of that. So yeah.
Yeah, but the core ideas are so similar. I mean, you're exploring other martial arts with weapons and different things like that. And jiu-jitsu is like with the gi is like a cousin versus, you know, a neighbor. Like, they're really related. And I think that
definitely.
If my jiu-jitsu, it's nothing, you know, I'm just some normal guy. But with the gi, without the gi, I do the same game. And the reason I'm in that situation is because I train when I can train. And if I get trained tonight, because I'm off work tonight, I'm going to go train regardless of if it's gi or no gi. And that's just the way it is for me. And looking at your situation, I mean, you've just kind of been doing what's interesting to you, and you've been training, you know, a lot without a lot of like real direct guidance. And looking at that, it's really got you to develop a lot of interesting systems and a lot of different games that you play. And that's, I mean, I think that's really fascinating looking back and seeing the type of grappler that you are.
You know, I've found that, and this is, you know, everyone says this, all there's some really wise people that say this, but I've just had to learn how to not compare my journey to anybody else's.
Yeah.
You know, I'm only comparing myself to how I used to be. If I, you know, straight up, dude, you got these kids that they're so young, 20, 21, 15, you know, Gordon Ryan and his little brother, these guys are young dudes. And, you know, that can be really discouraging for a guy who's 30 and been competing for years and years and years and see these guys take over the world. But you know what? They got their thing going and I got my thing going, you know, and everyone needs to realize that about every aspect of life, man. It's just to not get caught up in comparing yourself to anyone but yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't agree more. If you want to be unhappy, start comparing yourself to other people, and you'll find a way. Like, I could compare myself to your grappling, and I'll never be like, oh, man, I'm there. Like, I could be disappointed in my own successes that I'm having. And you could do the same with some other grappler. And that, you know, that grappler who you think is perfect is comparing himself to some guy in MMA
100%.
making a ton of money. And that guy's comparing himself to Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan's comparing himself to his cousin. You know, like, it makes you unhappy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. Like, life advice, I think, as far as and I think people do that a lot with, you know, in martial arts, sure, but with their family. Like, you could be jealous of a sibling, and then it ends up like really wreaking havoc on those relationships.
100%. You know, keeping up with the Joneses type of a thing, man. You know, it's just not the way to find peace and happiness. Honestly, you just got to be into bettering yourself. You know, like I often think to change the world, all you got to do is change yourself, you know, because really you can't change anything else outside of you. You don't really have that control. The only thing you really have control over is yourself. And so, you know, not comparing yourselves to others and just working on you, you know, and that's kind of how I take it all and try to, again, not compare and just be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah. Nathan, if you want to, you pick the time frame, but if you want to go back and tell us about a change you've made in yourself a year ago or a month ago or 10 years ago and how that's affected you, that would be kind of cool to hear.
Oh, man. You know, I've talked about this other places, but something crazy happened to me last fall. And I can't even remember exactly how it even happened, but I've had this desire to draw. My whole life, I've never called myself an artist. In fact, quite the opposite. I always said I was not an artist, and so I wrote down. I have like a lot of goals, and one of my goals was learn to draw. Right. So one day I was like, dude, I'm done. I'm done waiting. I'm just gonna sit down and draw. And I started drawing, and I'm drawing for a couple weeks, and I started drawing some pretty decent stuff that I like, at least. And then I went back to my notes or my goals, and I erased the learn to part away from learn to draw. And it just says now draw, because we all have the ability to do anything that we want to do. We just have to start doing it, And that's that was a mindset change for me, realizing that literally anything that I want to do, I can do. If I want to draw a masterpiece, you give me long enough and I'll do it. If I want to learn to play the piano and again, write some type of masterpiece on the piano, you give me 40, 50 years, I'll be able to do it. We have it all within us. We just have to sit down and do it. And learning, drawing, it's interesting. One person I study quite often is Miyamoto Musashi, and I think a lot of martial artists do. He wrote the Book of Five Rings, and he's one of the greatest swordsmen to ever live. And he was a master painter and calligrapher, of course, swordsman, sculptor, poet. This guy mastered everything, and it's because he found what he calls the way. And once you learn the way, you can apply it to all things, and you learn you can do anything, and so that's something that I've been able to kind of articulate better in the last year than maybe I ever have, realizing that we all have, and me and you and everyone, just infinite potential. We just got to do it. We got to quit being lazy, and we got to do what we truly want to do. We have to follow that passion and that desire that is deep, deep, deep inside of us that we all know we have, but it's like, if you're just getting off work and going home and drinking beer and watching TV and then doing it again the next day for weeks and months and years, that's no way to live. It's just no way to live. But deep down, everyone has these desires for creativity and passion, and to ignore those things is the worst thing I could imagine doing.
Nathan,
and yeah.
When you decided that you wanted to learn how to draw, what was like that week? What did you do differently?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to remember.
Did you go out and buy like a blank notepad? Did you take a class? Did you watch online tutorials?
No. You know what I did is, I'm the type of person that I have to have the right gear. Yeah. So I went to the art store and I bought different pencils and erasers and just a couple little different sketchbooks and first thing I did is I just started drawing shapes, just because it's like, practice drawing circles and cubes and things like that. And then, I've definitely watched some videos. I mean, gosh, there's so much information on YouTube, I mean, you can literally learn anything off of it. It's incredible. People who want to discount the credibility of YouTube are missing out on some gems. But, and then I mean, the thing is, I got like crazy obsessed for a couple months. Like, I was drawing almost like 30 hours a week. Like, I was barely sleeping. I couldn't. I was so excited about this new talent that I had found, and like uncovered. And so I just got really into it, and I would put 10 hours in on one picture. Like, I've never done that before in my whole life. Sit down and draw something for 10 hours, the same project, before you move on to the next. And you know what? You could ultimately put 50 and 100, hundreds of hours into one piece, and that, practicing that mindfulness, man, that's some good stuff from martial arts, let me tell you.
Yeah, imagine you're kind of losing yourself in the drawing, and the time does tick by really quickly. And
oh, it's unbelievable the time warp you go through. You lose yourself and find yourself at the same time.
So what are your best case scenario? You become this vision of artistic drawing ability that you're shooting for.
Sure.
What does that bring you?
What does it bring me?
Like, are you planning on making money with it? Does it bring you satisfaction or enjoyment? Does it?
No.
Like, what are you getting out of this?
I hear you. Fulfillment. Again, bettering myself. It feels good to learn. And the thing about money is, of course, we all need it. But if you're doing anything for money, you're probably going to fail. But if you're doing things for passion, to me, that's how the money follows. Just because you're doing your pure art and you're being true and to yourself. And there's something about that, you know. I'm a bit of a hippie, I guess, you know, but like there's something about the universe, how it listens to you working hard towards your passion, you know, and I feel like the universe wants to gift you when you are putting into yourself, if that makes sense. But if you're not, then you're just going to keep living the same kind of stagnant life, you know, and you're not going to go anywhere. But this is only my perspective and how it's worked out for me. But I'm just looking for how the connection, how everything is connected. How drawing is the same as the sword. It's the same as martial arts. It's the same as surfing. It's, you know, there's just these universal truths.
Yeah.
That I think I'm searching for and enjoy looking for, like they're a puzzle. Whether they're there or not, I don't know, but I'm sure enjoying my time.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think we could connect parts of this interview together as well. You know, somebody might, you know, be in a similar boat with their actual jiu-jitsu game as they are as you are with your drawing game. Like they're doing it for the enjoyment of it and the process of learning it and getting the most out of it. But if they're comparing themselves to you or somebody else at their gym or something that's bringing in frustrations, I'm never going to be that top level competitor that these guys are. I missed the boat. I'm too old, or I can't. You know, whatever that your problem is or your excuse is.
Sure.
And it's just. There's other things you can get out of it besides, you know, selling your artwork for, you know, a ton of money. You're getting so much more other than that. And I think that in jiu-jitsu, a lot of people need to find that thing or they get discouraged sometimes. And, you know, what it's bringing to their off the mat life.
Absolutely. No, it's very true, man. Yeah, it's some deep stuff going on, but you're right. You know, I mean, if I were to compare my art to real artists, like really, really good ones, or even trained or just more experienced, it would be too daunting. But, you know, just being able to draw anything that is recognizable is better than what I used to be able to do. So it's all good.
Yeah, you're looking for that improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I do like the parallels between the two. And it kind of also parallels with the you know, you don't really have an art instructor with you every day telling you can't make that way. The shading is this, you know, like you're really working in your own creative space.
Well, that's the other thing about Musashi is he says he had no teacher ever for anything. Like, I'm sure he would study other movements that people were making and stuff like that, but he didn't have a teacher. No one taught him how to draw or how to paint or how to sculpt or how to do the sword. Like, you know, Musashi says that all the answers lie within. So it's just uncovering these things. We have to, you know, be archaeologists and dig out the information that is in ourselves and uncover the dust that society and life has put on it. You know, these relics that are buried deep that are just there. They're just there. We just got to uncover them.
I like that. Take me to the archaeology site that is Nathan Orchard's grappling game. How are you uncovering the dust on these systems? Are you and one other teammate partnering up and kind of talking about things and working through positions? Are you just doing it while you roll? How are you?
I study a lot of video and just random stuff. You know, Sambo matches, judo matches. All kinds of things. And when something intrigues me, I go and I just study that movement and I replicate it. Even if it's not a movement that I feel like is even going to go into my game. It's just learning how to move, you know, and be comfortable in all movements. That makes it so I can then, the more I move, the more I can move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just practicing it all, practicing new things, practicing old things. And again, finding what you're intrigued with, like what is interesting to you, what drives you. If you're just like kind of bored with what you're doing, change it. I don't want to be bored. That's not inspiring, you know? And so I'm always just looking for something that's making me have fun and enjoy myself. You know, I think Marcelo Garcia said that he's not the best at jiu-jitsu. He just loves it the most. So that's what I try to find. I try to find the things I love to do. I just love it. You know, I'm not doing this to win. winning is nice, of course, but I'm doing it because I love it. So
yeah, and
that's
if you
kind
get
of the point for me.
if you get bored of something, you're not bored with jiu-jitsu. You're bored with maybe a system or a technique within that, and you're ready to move on and look for something else.
That's right.
And I think that is important to be that like super fascinated with something. You're not going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be thinking about a technique that woke you up that's boring to you. Like that's not going to happen. You need the excitement behind it and the passion.
100%. Yeah, it's true.
If so you've developed a lot of these systems and they are fun to watch. If you were to give me like a cheat sheet of how to like a process of developing something like this, what would be on that cheat sheet?
You know, to me, there are these, of course, all right, jiu-jitsu to me, it's made up of three things. It's made up of transitions, positions, and submissions. A guard pass is a transition, a takedown is a transition. Of course, positions are slightly more static, and then submissions are the actual, you know, thing that gets a tap, of course. Within submissions, the only thing there is bars, twists, and compressions. Those are the only three type of submissions there are. And so what I like to do is find things like, for example, a Kimura grip. If you grab onto a Kimura grip, you can just write it, just learn to write it out. No matter what's happening, hold on to that Kimura grip. It'll take you to the back. It'll take you to an arm bar. Believe it or not, it can take you to a leg attack. It can take you anywhere you want to go. And so it's like the Kimura grip is slightly, to me, it's kind of a transition, but it's also kind of a position. And once you can grab onto that, it's like a dynamic position. It's a moving position, a transitioning position, if you will. And so you can kind of grab onto it and then just write it out and see what pops up over and over and over again. You know, find the system by taking something that is concrete, like a Kimura grip, and then what can you find off of that after you just know how to hold on to that Kimura grip forever, no matter what. If you just first learn how to hold the Kimura grip forever, the next thing you'll do is learn how to take the back every time, or how to go to armbar position every time, or something like that. So again, finding something like concrete and then using that as your jumping off point to create a system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of explaining that. Is there a certain time frame as far as skill and ability that somebody should look at making their own system? Or I know you just started this really early on, but you know, for the average person, is there a certain level that they should probably look at having first?
Here's one thing that people need to understand is that their jiu-jitsu journey is their jiu-jitsu journey. It's not their coach's jiu-jitsu journey. It's not their teammates' jiu-jitsu journey. And so while it is important to you know, follow the instruction of your coach and stuff like that, no, I don't think there's ever a time to not be inspired or excited. Now, sometimes you need to just be able to know if there's better things to be inspired about. You know, to me, white belts shouldn't be so stoked on heel hooks. You know what I mean? In my school, you're not even allowed to heel hook until you're blue belt. We work leg attacks and leg positions. But so there are certain times where certain things need to be delved into deeper or not. But no, there always needs to be some type of like inspiration to do what you do, because this is your journey and that's it. Yeah. You know? That's how I see it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to say it. You don't teach or allow heel hooks to anybody, I guess white belts, anybody below blue. What brought that about?
It's just white belts don't even know how to like protect themselves or the other person. They just don't. They don't. To me, white belts are learning how to move. You know, they're just learning how to move. Once they know how to move, you know, then that's when you start going a little deeper. But like for a minute, you just kind of like, people got to get in touch with their bodies. Yeah. You know? And so something like a heel hook that takes, to me, it's no dangerous than any other thing, except for it's harder to understand. Once you understand it, you don't get hurt. But if both people don't understand what's happening, someone's going to get hurt. Yeah. And it takes longer than the time that you're a white belt to understand these things to where you can mess with that. And, you know, it's like you should just be working on your straight ankle locks, to me, because if you can straight ankle someone, to me, you should also be able to heel hook them. So it's good to just go to that one first. Just get a nasty straight ankle before you're even worried about heel hooks, because a heel hook you can kind of fall back on is sort of how I think of it, I guess.
Man, that's good advice. I know a lot of people who are new see like highlight videos of you, and they're like, "Man, I gotta do those heel hooks." And really, the money is better spent, your time and energy and effort, working on getting that straight ankle lock first. If you could do that,
Totally.
you could own somebody on a heel hook.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
That's cool.
I was straight ankling people for a very long time before I started heel hooking them, and I felt like it just that was a good way for me to go about it. So,
yeah. Are you running your own school there, or what are you doing as far as training?
Yeah, I run my own school, 10th Planet Portland Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm business partners with Phil Schwartz, and we're here, in Southeast Portland, and I've got a pretty decent squad. I am the only black belt at the school, and Phil is actually the only brown belt. So we're still young. We have a lot of real tough purple belts and an army of blues and all that. But, I train with my team, which is kind of crazy sometimes to think about that. I go against guys who are training with a room full of black belts and a world-class coach. I'm the coach, and I train with my team. But they have helped me with all of my success. So I feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
I do get to, when I travel, I get to roll with other black belts and this and that. But for the massive majority, like I'll go weeks without rolling with a black belt. Like that's crazy, when I'm going against guys who come from Atos or come from, Henzo Gracie, New York, things like that. Like to me, I shouldn't even be on these dudes' levels, but I am. And I beat them. Sometimes I lose. But the fact that I'm even in the running, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like if I was surrounded by black belts and world-class coach. I think these guys would be in some serious trouble.
Well, I think they already are. But Nathan, do you think this environment that you're in where you're the only black belt, there's one other brown belt, and a ton of lower levels that are really good, but being that person, is that also lend itself to being the person who is experimenting a lot in the room?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I get to just constantly work my game and work my attacks. I don't get to work like real intense defense as much, but that's when I get to kind of take control of my training and say, all right, I don't have to roll with the black belt to put myself in a really bad spot and then work my way out of it. So I can still get that like defensive training and stuff by making myself extra vulnerable and then going from there. So we can all control our own training. I can get black belt world-class training with a purple belt if I set the right rules for myself, and I just make it like, oh, I'm not allowed to do this move against them. I'm only focusing on this, or you know what I mean? I get to kind of dictate the training that I'm getting.
Yeah. It's a way that I think is somewhat an advantage. It's also, it would be a huge advantage to train with a bunch of, have a room full of black belts that are all
totally
world class. But you're finding a different type of advantage, and that's why I think you're able to bring in sometimes like a confusing game or a confusing system to somebody.
Yes.
And if in my experience, I don't do high level grappling, but when I get confused, I'm usually in a lot of trouble. It's going to end bad because if I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what he's trying to do next, and I don't really know what I should be doing, I'm pretty much deep into their system already. And it's almost over.
Absolutely.
If you could give your team, not the whole 10th Planet, but like the guys you train with on a regular basis, if you can give the team a compliment about their training, what would you say?
I feel like I don't know what I would say exactly about their training, but as far as the people in my gym, I cannot believe how much I have grown to love them all over time and connect with them and I just appreciate the fact that they come and train, and the fact that they even show up, because it's not easy to go to class day in, day out and get your ass kicked and just keep the grind up. And so just the fact that they keep showing up says so much about them all to me. That's, again, I don't care how well you do it. I just care that you do it, So the fact that they keep coming back, there is no higher compliment I could ever receive. Someone just continually coming to my school and helping me and giving me the opportunity to help them. So I have a great group of open-minded, beautiful people.
Wow, it is so awesome to hear an attitude of being grateful for the teammates that are below you. I think at times Jiu-Jitsu has had the opposite of like, you guys owe me, I'm this and that, and to see that coming from you, it's really nice to see.
I would like to explain deeper how I think of it. When you think of a pyramid, you got the one guy sitting on top and everyone below him. The way I see it, as a black belt and the most experienced person in my school, I am on the bottom of the pyramid, and the pyramid is upside down. And I feel like because I have the most ability, I need to be the best servant in a way. I need to work harder for everyone because I have the most experience. I have the most obligation, So I don't have the least amount of obligation because I'm the highest rank in my school. It's quite the opposite. I'm at the bottom of the pile, trying to hold everybody up and help everybody and lift everybody. I see it as an upside down pyramid that I'm on the bottom of. And so that's why after every class, I sweep the floor and clean my mats, and I'm never above it. In fact, I have the most obligation to do more work.
That's awesome. And hearing that, you're grateful that they keep coming back, but there's no question why, even if you weren't a world-class grappler, just the attitude of a coach, people are going to love coming back and training.
It means a lot, man. Thank you.
So you mentioned that you travel some. Are you traveling and teaching seminars, or what are you doing?
Yeah. I get to teach a lot of seminars, man. It's cool. I have a lot of fun. In fact, one thing for our listeners, I'm doing a seminar. I got to check out the exact dates, but you guys could also follow me on Instagram, Nate Orch 10P. And I'm going to do a 8-day camp in Thailand, an island in the Gulf of Thailand, Koh Tao, where there is a 10th Planet Koh Tao out there and some really good dudes. And so it would be awesome if anyone wants to come out and get some awesome training in paradise. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and it's honestly been this will be my 4th time there, and honestly, every time it's been like a life-changing experience. Just the people I meet and the experiences that I have traveling, they're absolutely incredible and mind-opening. So, I'll be doing that, going to Thailand again. And yeah, I get to run around and do some other things. I'll be in Salt Lake City next weekend at Jeremy Horn's teaching a truck seminar. So yeah, I get to meet a lot of cool people.
And if somebody wants you to come teach a seminar at their place, is that an option?
Oh, of course. Oh yeah, I'm happy to teach anywhere and make it all work. I really am not political in any way, and I'm happy to share my knowledge with any team or any affiliation. I don't really see myself as Team 10th Planet versus Team Gracie Baja versus Team Renzo Gracie versus Team Atos. To me, man, it's Team Jiu-Jitsu. You know what I mean? Yeah. We all do jiu-jitsu, and there's an unlimited amount of white belts out there on the street, and those are the people we need to be bringing in the gym, not fighting each other and all that. So very open door as far as who I will train with and who can come visit my school. And again, I'm open to work with anybody.
Awesome. Do you have any sponsors or anybody you would like to give a shout out to?
Absolutely. Phalanx, they are an incredible no-gi company, make sweet rash guards and shorts, and they just do some beautiful stuff. And then Datsusara, they make hemp gear, and they've been a great help to me as well. So those are both a couple of people I'd really like to thank.
Is there? You mentioned Instagram. Is that the best way to get a hold of you or to follow you online?
Yeah. I mean, between contacting my school on Facebook or calling us or hitting me up on Instagram. Instagram is the one I like the most. Facebook can be kind of weird with all that, but still, if someone wants to hit me up on Facebook, they could attempt that, and I will get back to them whenever I can. But Instagram or my school is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Nathan, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Hey, man, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Man, thank you, Nathan, so much for jumping on the podcast and talking with me. Really appreciated the conversation and learned a lot from him. And he's such a creative person, and you can see that he's somebody who is leading by example. Follow your passions, follow what's interesting to you, and that will bring you success. And yes, success might be different than everybody else's standards might have. Like he's doing all that art stuff. What is his definition of success with the art? He wants to enjoy it and to make the best art he can. He's not looking to make a living with his artwork. And I think that's a good example for jiu-jitsu. You know, learn to enjoy it and get the most out of it that you can, you know, fitness or friends, relationships, and, you know, self-defense, all these things. But, you know, or if you want to become a world-class athlete, I mean, that could be there for you as a possibility. But just have, it's okay to follow it just for the purpose of enjoying it and enjoying the learning process and discovery process. So I think that's the example with his art. He is not trying to become a world-class artist, but he still loves it. He's still drawing a lot, and he's really getting a lot out of that. And I think that's a good example of where many of us are in jiu-jitsu. We're just doing it because we love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of makes me think, too, that you're talking about his art and, you know, he's not doing it to become a world-class artist or whatever. But I always think that the people who have that attitude that, you know, just love it so much, you almost do become to that point. You know, it's, I don't know, it just seems like people excel more if they love it so much. You know, they're thinking about it. They're always looking at ways to improve. They're always having fun. And you know, but, you know, like you said, that's the whole key to everything, you know, just have fun. We don't all have to win every tournament in the world or this and that. And, you know, I like getting better at jiu-jitsu, and, you know, I like tapping people out, but I like escaping from moves. But, you know, to be honest, I think I just like hanging out with the guys and having a fun time more than I would care about, you know, some other stuff. It's just a good time, and it makes me happy.
Yeah. It kills me when I see a teammate or training partner kind of drop off because they start getting tapped out by somebody who wasn't as good as they were, you know, 6 months or a year ago. And suddenly the person has caught up to them and they get discouraged and they kind of quit coming to class. It's like, yeah, I really feel like I got worse. No, it's okay that somebody has caught up to you. It's okay that somebody has passed you an ability on the mat. Just keep training. Who cares? Like, and Nathan got into that about trying to, you know, don't compare yourself to others. That's a quick way to become unhappy. So what? You know, he's been training for 6 years, and this guy with 1.5 years or 2 years is tapping you occasionally. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. Anybody that you know, go home and try telling your spouse, yeah, I'm getting tapped by this guy.
They don't care.
Did you go train? Did you work out? Did you have fun? I mean, don't let this take away the fun of your grappling. There's no reason for that.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, the other point I like to make about that, too, is, you know, we all do want to get better. We are having fun, but we want to get better. And we're going to get better as our teammates get better.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it as another plus that, hey, I used to be better than this guy. He has gotten better. And, you know, now I think he's better than me. But that just makes every role with that person, I'm going to learn so much more. I'm going to have to, you know, I'm going to be a step behind. So I'm going to have to be sharp. I'm going to have to work harder. I'm going to have to, you know, just keep going. And I just think that the better people you train with, the more people that are better than you, the better spot you're at. So you can look at it that way also. Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that, you know, sit there and be happy about it if your grappling ability is tanking. Yeah. I mean, if you've got several more years on the mat or a lot more experience than everybody else, and suddenly everyone's tapping out with anything that they want, you probably have made some bad decisions in things that you're trying to do on the mat. You know, maybe go back to which was working better for you, if that matters to you. You know, like that's what's great about this is immediate feedback about what you're doing. And sometimes you might be doing the wrong thing, and sometimes it takes a little bit of adjusting before you can figure out, yeah, this will work for me. I think this will be good. It might take a few rolls or even a month or two before it either settles in, or you could determine, yeah, this isn't for me. I can't do this very well, and I could find something else. So I think that's glad you kind of mentioned that, Gary, that we are trying to get better, and I'm not urging anybody to just sit back and say, yeah, I'm happy with this. Yeah, I'm getting worse, or yeah, everybody else is getting better, but I'm not. Continue to try to get better. That's what brings a lot of joy to the mat.
Like I remember, you know, you'd been training a couple of years, Byron, and you know, Byron's nickname on the mat, he had two different nicknames.
Oh boy, here we go.
One was Sir Taps-a-Lot,
yeah,
and the other was Gregory Hines, and you know, the famous tap dancer. So, you know, I mean, that just shows Byron was getting tapped out a lot, but he never quit. And you know, even till this day, everybody still calls him Sir Taps-a-Lot or Gregory Hines. But you know, those are old days. But he could easily quit, but he was always having fun, and you know, he loved having cool nicknames like that.
The coolest nicknames, Gary.
You got that right. Speaking of cool, definitely check out BJJ Brick on social media. We are on Facebook. That's where we are most of the time. We're on Twitter. Definitely check out the YouTube channel. YouTube channel has everything from basically question and answers. It has actually the podcast on there. It has a famous grilled cheese video to a whole bunch of DVD technique reviews, from a lot of the high-level guys there. So definitely check it out and tell your friends about BJJ Brick there also.
Right now I have Jeremy Parrish with me, and he's got a message about a local charity event here in Wichita, Kansas. And I'm happy to bring him back on. We've been on a couple of weeks in a row here, and just excited about this event. Jeremy, what's happening?
So July 22nd, we're going to be doing a open mat Grappleathon charity event that is going to support the We Defy Foundation. We're going to be running this from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. At Fox Fitness on July 22nd in Wichita, Kansas. All the proceeds are going to go directly to the We Defy Foundation. If you're not familiar with that program, it's a complete nonprofit organization that helps veterans train jiu-jitsu and in hopes that it can get them back involved within the community, open doors to friendships, better life through jiu-jitsu. A lot of the mentality that a lot of us are trained jiu-jitsu for. It's try to get them in for that. This is going to be ran across the nation at all of the We Defy Foundation's approved gyms. So, if you don't live near Wichita or can't make it down to Wichita, you can always go to the We Defy Foundation's website, and they have a section there that that has the information on all their approved facilities. So, if you listen and you're up in Pennsylvania or in the New Jersey area, I believe Jared Wiener's got his gym is affiliated. I'm sure he'll be doing something. So you can always check that out, and maybe there's a gym closer that you can, still get involved with without having to come to Wichita.
Yeah. So if you're anywhere near the area, we'd love to have you. And the 22nd will be at Fox Fitness. And then, like you were saying, lots of these gyms are affiliated with We Defy Foundation and working with them to help promote jiu-jitsu among our veterans. And also, so the 23rd, we have two gyms in Wichita, and the 23rd is at Valor. And the chances are, if you live in a pretty big city, there's going to be an event that weekend, maybe 22nd, 23rd. I don't know, maybe even that Friday, which would be the 21st. But yeah, this is going to be a big weekend for the We Defy Foundation. Get on there and look and see what's happening near you. If you're anywhere near us, we'd love to have you. But we'd also love to have you just go to any of these. They're going to be great events.
Yeah, they should be really good. It's I've already seen a bunch of gyms that are already affiliated. They're posting about their events, and it's looking like there's a good chance if you're near one of these gyms, there'll be something for you to attend. That way you can be part of their fundraiser.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good we've talked about this a couple times and locally, but yeah, it's big and it's going to be happening all over the country. And so definitely wanting to help this out as much as we can. So thanks, Jeremy, for helping on here with me. Gary, I want to give a quick mention to our Patreon page. And Patreon is a website that helps people who make content, a lot of digital content, and podcasting is definitely in that category. If you have listened to this episode and thought, man, I'd like to help these guys out and help them continue to do what they're doing, and maybe in the future even do it a little bit better at a better level, go to Patreon, and there's a link to it in the show notes, and you could become one of our supporters. And we do have, I've cut out a lot of the stuff that was on Patreon. We now have 2 levels of support. I think we used to have like 4 or 5. We now have the support. You can support the show at $1 per episode, and when you do that, I'm going to mail you out 2 things in your, to your house or wherever you send the address to: a 3-inch BJJ Brick sticker and a 5-inch BJJ Brick gi patch. And just as to say thank you for supporting the show and being willing to pledge $1 per episode. Also, you get invited to the BJJ Brick private Facebook group. There's more details. There's a video on the Patreon page that kind of explains everything. But if you want to become a member in the private Facebook group, there's about 30 people, and there's not very many. It's a small group, and a lot of times I'll ask, do you have a question for somebody I'm interviewing pretty soon here, and I'll get some questions from the listeners from that. The other option is becoming a $3 supporter. You get everything the dollar supporter gets, but also we'll try to arrange a time with you to get you on the show to present your favorite quote and discuss it with us a little bit on an episode in the future. And I think that'll be a fun way. We have several $3 supporters now, and if you're listening to this and you're like, that's me, I could be one of those. Send me an email, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and say, hey, I want to get on and present my quote, and we'll get you on at our soonest convenience that we're available to do that. And if our schedules don't match up very well, getting all three of us, it might just be me calling you and recording it, and I'll share it with Gary later on. But I think it'll be a fun way to get more listeners on the show. And if you are one of our super supporters at $3 level, definitely would like to get you on and share your favorite quote with us.
Yeah, definitely a great idea. We'd love to have a lot of our listeners on the show. One thing Byron did also forget to mention that Byron's given away with a $3 group there is a 8x10 color glamour shot of Byron. And you can ask, what you would like, what you want him to wear, if, anything, and whatever pose you'd like him to do. And he will definitely get that out to you. A lot of people have really been asking for that.
Yeah, and then also at that level, we're considering doing a poster-sized picture of Gary and all sweaty after a workout, hair messed up.
I'd buy that.
Yeah, that would be one person. But so we'll get that right out to you, Gary.
Well, thank you, Byron. I appreciate it.
Put that in the gym.
Yeah, and definitely, if you listen to our show, tell your friends about it. But also, don't forget to give us a review. They're on iTunes. Go on to iTunes and give us a review. We like funny reviews. We like all reviews. But we'd appreciate if you could do that for us also. All
right, guys. For the article of the week this week, another article written by our friend Joe Thomas. And he's been writing articles for the BJJ Brick website, and it's been fun to get him on the podcast, so we've got him on the line right now as well. So this article is titled BJJ Seminars, How to Get the Most Out of Them. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Byron. It's good to be with you all today. You guys doing all right?
We are doing great. We really appreciate, like Byron said, you coming on and also, being a guest of our show all the time there. But, this is a great article. I do hear, like one of the things you talk about, the prices of seminars are kind of high. And, I do hear people saying, hey, is it worth the expense? And, me personally, I believe it's worth the expense, but how do we get the most out of the expense? It's like what we want to do with everything, get the most out of whatever we're doing. And, this article is just great, and it definitely will help anybody, get the most out of any seminar they'll attend.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you liked it. I think I've written a couple of articles that are similar to this, and it's been a learning process for me, kind of learning a little bit about how I approach life and jiu-jitsu. And I think I could sum it up that if you put as much effort into preparation and follow through as you do into the execution of anything, you'll increase what you get out of it dramatically. And that's sort of how all these articles have gone.
Yeah, definitely, Joe, there. I like what you said. You put the preparation in, and it goes right back to jiu-jitsu. Everybody just sees the final product. They see the flying arm bar. They see the, arm bar from mount or the cross collar choke, but, they didn't see all that preparation that you put in beforehand, learning the move, drilling the move, going over and over again, many hours on the mat, with a training partner, trying to get into that position, trying to work it. But somebody just comes to your tournament or just steps into the free roll and just sees you hitting it. But, like you said, everything you've kind of talked about in your different articles all goes back to that preparation. And it's just, just exactly how jiu-jitsu works. All that preparation behind the scenes, to get that one submission or to have that one escape.
Yeah, Joe, in your article, you're talking about actually preparing for the actual seminar, and some of these things are easier to do than others. If it's just a seminar with a person, you may not really know what you're getting into. But if it's billed as like a spider guard seminar or a leg lock seminar, how would you prepare for those sort of things?
Well, I think one of the keys is just to make sure you at least understand the basics of the position. When this article idea was rolling around in my head, I happened to attend a seminar, and it was billed as a leg lock seminar, a foot lock seminar, and the guy that was teaching it was a part of the organization that the school belongs to where the seminar was held. So pretty much everybody should have had an idea of the basics. And when I went to the seminar, my back was jacked up, so I ended up doing more observing than participating. And I watched two guys that were working that did not have the basics down. The instructor liked to use a single leg X-guard entry to a sweep, and then the foot's right there for you. And these two guys spent most of their time trying to figure out where their right foot went and where their left foot went, and how to trap their opponent's foot so that it was available to them after the sweep. And I'm sure that they learned something from the seminar, but I got to think they didn't feel like they really came away with better knowledge of footlocks. Does that make any sense? Have you guys seen anything similar to that?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's basically, like you said, a footlock seminar, but these two really didn't have the single leg X down and, kind of working. They spent probably more time working, to get into that single leg X and to get that sweep, and probably learn more about that than they did about, a basic footlock or ankle lock or heel hook or whatever you're going for there. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And so the instructor would demo a move, and then he'd take the time to go around and talk to the individual students as they're doing it. And some of the students got some pretty high-level pointers and were able to fine-tune what they were doing. But when the instructor got to these two, he doesn't have 15 minutes to give them a private lesson on how to enter the position. And so they would get some basic pointers, but not nearly the same level of instruction that everybody else was getting. I just thought that was a perfect example of these two guys could have spent 15, 20 minutes either watching some YouTube videos or asking some of the other students that belong to this organization in the week or two leading up to the seminar to show them how to get into this position. And I think they would have felt like they got much more out of the seminar if they'd done that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is they learned something, but they could have learned something a lot more specific to the person teaching it. Whereas the stuff they learned, they could have probably picked it up from a lot of their teammates, and it would have been fine doing that. Where you have this world-class person teaching a seminar, they're showing you the basic entry methods of doing a technique. Well, they could, if you think of it as, if you go to the seminar, like, I understand a lot of this, but I have problems when I get to this position or get to this spot in this technique, and hopefully they'll be able to help me fix this situation I'm running into. And if you don't even know that about yourself, about that problem you're going to have in the future, they can't help you with that.
Joe, your second point here is have reasonable expectations. And I just wanted to let you expand on that and kind of what you mean by that.
Well, I think the first thing that anybody should realize is that I don't think it's possible to completely transform your jiu-jitsu game in a 2 or 3 hour seminar. And so if you're going to a seminar thinking the instructor is going to hand out magic pills at the beginning and you're going to be a leg lock expert when you're done, then I think you'll be disappointed. And you got to know that going in. And then some of the seminars are almost more of a meet and greet kind of thing. If you're paying for a seminar with a high profile athlete, certainly you want to spend some time with them. You want to get to know them. You want some private instruction from them, but you got to realize that there's 50 other students going with the same idea. So just make sure that you're not coming away disappointed because your expectations were too high.
Definitely good points. I like what you said. There's, it's not a magic pill. You're not going to, overnight become a world champion with a 2 or 3 hour seminar. I'm always happy if I go to a seminar and people may look at me kind of crazy, but I'm really just happy if I really pick up one thing. One thing means a lot to me. And if I can get one thing, which normally I get a lot more than one thing, but, one thing will really help my game out, every little bit I can add. But, that it's a very important expectation there to realize that you're not just going to become superhuman overnight. And I do think sometimes on people's first seminar, they think that's what's going to happen. And then they come away a little disappointed.
Yeah. I think having high expectations or unreasonable expectations is, if you look behind any time in life that you're disappointed in something, a lot of times your expectations were different than what was going to happen in reality. And so if this person's super famous or really good at jiu-jitsu, still, time is limited. Your ability to pick things up is limited. Have expectations that they're going to try to teach you the best they can, that they're going to be, teaching a seminar to you and a group of other people and giving you their all for that time. But, expectations in yourself to pick up stuff super easy, or expectations in them to give you their game, in a couple hours and have it all easy for you to do, that's a bit too high, and you're going to be disappointed.
Exactly.
Hey, Joe, I think your third point is very, very important on taking notes. And if you could expand a little bit on that.
Okay. Anytime I've attended a seminar, I notice not 100% of the people do this. At least I'm not seeing them. But I always see a handful of people that they've got a notepad right at the edge of the mat. And they'll hear or see something that they think is important. You'll see them scramble over to the edge of the mat and they'll scribble down some notes. And I've got to think that those are the students that probably end up retaining the most from the seminar. I got to admit, I'm not real good at it, but I believe it's important and helpful.
I like your second part of that too. And the reason this one, I kind of gravitated towards this one is I found that the seminars that I didn't get as much out of is my own fault for not taking notes. Like I would forget stuff. I'd forget little spots of it, or, and then I would try to ask somebody the next day and maybe they didn't have it down either. And I would see people on the side taking notes and I would say the same thing. Those are the guys who are probably going to get it. But I like the part you that happens next time. The second part you had, within the next day or two, take those scribbled notes and rewrite them with as many details as you can recall. And I have seen the times too, when I did get a little bit smarter and take notes, I didn't do that second part you were saying. And then all of a sudden, maybe I didn't look at the notes for a week and too much time had went by. And I almost couldn't even remember what those notes were about. So I think that's a really good point of, the next day going back and take your little scribble notes and then, rewrite them in more detail. That's a great point, Joe.
And that made me laugh a little bit because that's exactly what I was thinking. I've done the scribble note things before and then read them a week later. And it's like, what did I mean when I wrote that down? I don't even know what that means.
You're like, did I write this? It makes no sense. That's what I would always be telling myself.
I think the note-taking process is very personal as far as you're trying to explain something that's happening in jiu-jitsu on a piece of paper with a sentence or two, or maybe a little drawing, and then get back on the mat as quick as you can to keep training. And I think that you'll, with anything, if you keep practicing this and you keep working at making better notes, you'll get better at them. But the idea of coming back to them in a short amount of time and fine-tuning those notes and making them better, that's a very interesting concept, which I think will have a big effect on your ability to recall those techniques further down the road.
Something I thought about after I wrote the article, I think everybody's got an app on their phone that'll let them do voice recording. And when I'm driving down the road and I see something interesting or I hear something on the radio, I'll pick my phone up and start the record button and I'll just say a few things into it and then that'll remind me later. And you could certainly do that after a seminar. Get in your car and on the way home, just kind of think through it and think about things that you thought were crucial and important and just verbally put it down. I guess I'm old school. I still think pen and paper, but man, we've got some technology that can help us out with some of that.
Well, Joe, I'm with you too. I think pen and paper too. And to be honest, I never even thought about voice recorder, but that's a great idea right there.
So the next point about shooting some video, if it's okay with the person running the seminar. Have you ever seen that happen or asked anybody if you could do that?
The key is, like you said, ask if you can do it. Because like you said, here in your article, they do make their money off of that. Some people are okay with it, some aren't. And the biggest thing before you start doing it is definitely ask.
Yeah, that was a suggestion that was given to me by several people. I kind of put the question out there to other people what they do. And so when that suggestion was given to me, I was kind of, well, I'm going to put it in the article, but I'd just be very careful because you don't want to be eating into somebody's their customer base by offering free material when they might be trying to sell some later.
Yeah, yep. And I think a good thing with doing that too is I went to a seminar probably about a year ago, and somebody did record it with the permission of the person teaching the seminar. And there we kind of had a little online chat, a little Facebook chat with the people who were in that went to the seminar. And that guy who videotaped it was giving was downloading it for everybody if you had a flash drive or whatever. But the one thing I like too is I do remember that person saying, hey, this is only for the people who went to the seminar. Don't give this to somebody else or let anybody else really see it. I just thought that was kind of cool that he threw that out there. And that's the thing, let's be respectful of these people coming in to teach the seminars. I mean, if they're okay with you shooting it, definitely shoot it. But, don't put it up on Facebook, or this and that, or on a YouTube channel, because it could hurt those guys a little bit.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to handle it, Gary.
And there might be aspects that they would be okay with you showing, that you kind of promote them as a person who teaches seminars and the atmosphere that they're creating. And they might, you might just post a bunch of stuff of like their specific details and try to get a bunch of attention from that, and that might hurt them. So you might, they might even say, yeah, you could put this online, or maybe just have it for yourself. Because video is a great learning tool, especially if you shoot it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're there in person and you can remember it. That's a great tool. But yeah, you don't want to be hurting the people that come to town, and they're giving you some trust. That's for sure. When you're shooting video of them showing technique and you're saying, I'm not going to put this online, they are really trusting you to not put that online, because it would be far safer for them to say, no, just put it away. It's not worth the effort. I don't really, and these people, generally speaking, they don't really know everybody at the seminar. They're not from here. They're from somewhere else. They're coming to travel into town and teach. So just for them to allow you to shoot it, they're really showing you a lot of trust and hoping you do the right thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, I mean, you bringing that up, Byron, I remember you telling me about, trust and a video camera. And, back when you were with your previous boyfriend, he released some of that tape, and I remember you were kind of upset about it. So definitely, when Byron says it's firsthand. So, I take that as, gospel.
There you go.
There you go.
I don't know how to respond to that, Gary. So good thing is we have another point to talk about here, Joe.
Yeah, I would say in my mind, this might be the most important one, is to get some reps in as soon as possible after the seminar. I have been shown new moves, and then 4 days later, go to show somebody else, and it's like, dang it, I can't remember what was next, and I got to rack my brain. And, so I think the sooner after the seminar that you can get some reps in, the more this will be cemented into your memory. I have seen at one of the schools that I train at that the coach really likes when people go to seminars to come back the next class or as soon as they can and show the rest of the students what they learned at the seminar. To me, teaching somebody else is the best way to really make sure that material gets embedded. So that would be my preference if it's available to you, if you've got a school that's like that.
Yeah, definitely a good point, teaching somebody, because it seems like you have to understand it a little bit more. You have to, go through the process. Your mind and body have to work together. But I also like what you explain about, too, is, if you have a mat at home, some mat space at home, practice. But most people don't have that. And your next point is good. Maybe show up to class early. Like maybe your instructor is not going over what you learned in the material on Monday night's class from Saturday or Sunday's seminar. But I thought your idea of, maybe talking to one of your training partners, hey, you mind showing up, 15, 30 minutes early, and we can work on some of that stuff. And it's a good way to refresh your memory. So I thought that was a great idea you had there.
Or go downtown to the local biker bar and just initiate a little sparring match.
I've tried that, but I normally lose. They're pretty tough when I pull guard on them, so they don't like that.
Well, Gary is pulling spider guard with guys who have cut off sleeves, and it's just a bad idea.
Yeah, definitely bad idea. I needed to do a little prep work beforehand and see what I was getting into. So we go back to point number 1, and that was my problem.
Yep. Now he switched basically to no gi all the time, so he's good to go.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Joe, it was fun having you on here. Let's have you on next week because you have another article that is out that we haven't yet to talk about. So thanks a bunch, Joe.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Joe, for hopping on here with us, and he'll be on here with us hopefully next week, and we'll discuss another article he's written. Gary, we're trying to change things up a little bit and get more mat tails, but it's kind of funny is that they seem to be a little contagious. We'll get one, and then like a couple people will hear it and think, oh, yeah, I got a story that could be similar to that. It'd be funny, and we'll get some in. But when we don't have mat tails, it's hard to continue to grow this. And, I've listened to these mat tails several times, and they're always funny. So I think we can go back to the old library, dust off a couple of mat tails, and play them. So here is the throwback mat tails. I was fairly new to BJJ and extremely excited to take a seminar from a BJJ black belt. Having only trained with white belts and a couple of blue belts, I was convinced that this would be a glorious day in my BJJ training. The day before the seminar, I was told by my boss that I would need to come into work for 8 hours. I could not believe it. My hopes and dreams getting this precious mat time with such a skilled grappler were fading. I soon devised a plan. It was a long shot, but worth a try. I asked my boss if I can come into work early. I suggested that I might even be able to get more work done due to having less distractions around me. My boss agreed and gave me his set of keys. But he was a little surprised to hear that I planned on coming in at 4 in the morning. That morning, I crawled out of bed shortly after 3, had just enough time to eat a small breakfast, get dressed, throw my gi in the car, and be off to work. I got to work, and my motivation to train with a black belt was all the fuel I needed to be super productive at work. By the time my boss got there, I was ahead of schedule, and he was impressed. In order to leave on time, I skipped lunch. With 30 minutes left in my shift, my boss told me that I had done a great job and could take off. My gym did not have a locker room, and the restroom was less than desirable to change in. So I grabbed my gi and decided to change in the work restroom. Once in the restroom, I locked the door. The handle on this door is often stubborn, so I pulled hard on the handle as I locked it. I felt something in the handle pop, but thought nothing of it. I quickly changed into my gi. Up to this point, my day was going perfectly. This is when I discovered that the door was in fact broken. But not just broken, it was locked and broken. This, of course, predated cell phones. So I resorted to yelling for help. I spent 5 minutes yelling for help. Then 10. 10 turned to 15. I was going to be running late because I was locked in the bathroom and no one could hear my cries for help. Finally, a coworker, Don, heard me yelling. I quickly explained to Don that I was stuck in the restroom and needed to get out as quickly as possible. Don told me to hang on and he would get the boss to use his key to unlock the door from the outside. Don returned in a few minutes to inform me that the boss was out running errands. I put the lid down on the toilet seat and waited. This was the first time all day that I took a break. My stomach reminded me that I had skipped lunch. The frustration of missing the beginning of the seminar and no food was a lot for me to handle. I started to look around. Perhaps there was a solution to my problem inside the bathroom. What would MacGyver do? I asked myself. I began to take inventory of my available supplies. Toilet scrub brush, paper towels, shelving, first aid kit, cleaning solution. That's solution, but that's not the right type of solution I'm looking for. No MacGyver-like inventions came to mind. So I will sit and I will wait for my boss and his key. After being trapped for about an hour, my boss arrived. The timing was not good, but this would mean I could still make most of the seminar. My boss informed me that he did not have a key to the bathroom. He did not have the key to the bathroom because I had the key to the bathroom. It was on the keychain that he gave me so I can get to work before everyone else. When he told me this, I felt a bit stupid and embarrassed because I could hear a collection of co-workers nearby release a chuckle. I could tell that I was the entertainment in the office today. I took the key off the key ring and slid it under the door. I guess my MacGyver skills failed to account for the key in my pocket. My boss inserted the key into the lock, but the lock did not release. I heard him jiggle the handle. Still, it would not turn. Then I heard the key snap. What happened? I asked. The key broke. Now what are we going to do? Hang on, we'll figure something out. I waited for about another hour, periodically asking what was going on and checking for updates, reminding them that I was still in here. Word was, they called my boss's boss. Somebody who does not work Saturdays, but for me, in my situation, he was coming down. I was guessing with his permission, they would be able to break the door down, thus releasing me from my prison cell. After an hour passed by, I reflected on the amazing seminar that I had missed. I thought about my coach, and that I had let him down by not showing up. I thought about my teammates, that all probably took a giant step in their math skills this day. I briefly mourned the seminar. It had come, and it had passed, and it would soon be time for me to move on with my life. But first, I would need to get out of this prison. Finally, I heard the big boss's voice. "What are you doing in there?" "I'm stuck," I said with frustration in my voice. "Don't worry, we'll get you out of there." For some reason, this was actually reassuring. Like in the back of my mind, they would all just go home and leave me here. Soon, someone started banging on the door handle, followed by brief pauses to assess the lock, followed by more banging and tinkering. The banging stopped for a while. I began to wonder if they were taking a break. About 10 minutes after the banging had stopped, the ceiling tile above the door started to move, and then was lifted. This is when I saw the big boss's head appear in the ceiling. He was clearly standing on a ladder on the other side of the door. He took one look at me, wearing my gi, and said, "Did you try to karate chop the door?" "I don't do karate." "I'm going to drop some tools down to you, and you can destroy that lock." The first tool was a tape measure, obviously a joke. Then came the tools I needed: a hammer, screwdriver, pry bar. I hit the handle again and again. Finally, it snapped off. The door loosened. I took the screwdriver, lined it up inside the handle, hit the screwdriver with the hammer. Eventually, the lock was defeated. I emerged from my prison to a mocking cheer from my co-workers. Most of them stayed late to watch the rescue unfold. When I arrived home, I called my coach to ask about the seminar and apologize for missing it. He informed me that the seminar was, in fact, awesome, and they had mostly worked on escapes. I told him that I also worked on escapes today. All right, well, that was Matt Tales. If you have a funny or kind of a crazy jiu-jitsu story, send it to us at bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'd like to make your story into something like you just heard there.
Yep, we always love Matt Tales, and it always keeps me out of having to do a fake audiobook, so please get them in.
Gary, we're going to still occasionally do a fake audiobook, no matter what. I mean, you got to do a few a month.
Yeah, it'll keep me sharp.
That's true, because your drilling's not... Oh, ouch.
Ooh.
Your sloppy drilling technique, you're making permanent.
Yeah, I made it permanent.
Yeah, sorry, Gary. I just broke the tears in front of everybody. It's kind of awkward.
Well, I think I'm just going to quit now.
Okay. Hey, before you quit, you're too legit, man.
Thank you, Sir Tapsalot.
You're too legit to quit. But, yeah, if you want to catch Gary before he quits and you happen to be in the Wichita, Kansas area, hit us up at our email or Facebook page, and we'd like to train with you. and we'll try to make that happen the best we can. So bjjbrick@gmail.com or our Facebook page, and tell us when you're going to be in town and when you're able to get on the mat, and we'd be happy to roll with you. That's always
It's been kind of cool. It seems like here lately we've been having a couple guests here every month, so just kind of neat to get to roll with different people and learn from different people and just make some connections. So thank you guys for all anybody who has stopped by and rolled with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, had a great time this week. We'll catch you guys next week. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower and shampoo.
Nice.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.